Hey everybody, Dr. Tom Miller here, and I want to help answer this question that all of your employees are asking right now. Do I have a future here? I mean, it is March. It is that time of year where folks just started to think about other opportunities. I mean, there's key members of your team asking this question daily, and if you're not concerned about all that talent and intellectual information just running out the door on a daily basis, you're concerned about the wrong things. And I mean, my entire career, I waited for this time. When I was a teacher in New Hanover County, you had to put yourself on a transition list in order just to interview with other opportunities. I remember every single year my principal getting so mad, but I wanted to know what was out there. I was curious. I had big dreams and big goals, and I wasn't necessarily happy where I was. That didn't change even when I had my best job, maybe, right? My government job when I was working in the Department of Education in North Carolina. I had my mid-year eval, or I guess it was end of year eval, my PDP at the end of the year. And my boss said to me, he said, I'm not sure how to grow you, and I'm not sure how much longer I can keep you. Now, I know he meant well when he said that. I realize that now, but at the time it really upset me. Right? It really upset me because I just wasn't sure. I'm like, is this the best place for me? So, I want to take some time, and this lines right up to indicator 4 of my 10 indicators of high performing charter schools, where it's all about employee development. Okay, it's about recruiting, retaining, and developing the best employees. So I'm going to share some best practices here for you that you'll be able to take back to your organization and either embed in your personal life or your professional life, right? So, most organizations most organizations have some like an individual development plan or a personal development plan. In education, that they call it a PDP because we're always talking in acronyms. And so, you know, don't just allow your PDP to be a check mark. I just remember as a teacher, it was like, hey, everybody's got to do their PDP. Make sure you take the time to write down what's your goal going to be. And then it was like maybe you got to pick one goal and the school picked a goal or two, for you, right? They were driving that aligned to their school improvement plan. Now I see the PDP now. As an employee, I saw it as a check mark. I see it now as an agreement. The PDP is an agreement, between the organization and the employee that, hey, I'm going to help you grow, right? I'm going to put the pieces in place. I'm going to create an environment and opportunity for you to achieve these, goals, right? To feel and be more successful in your role. I'd like to make that happen. I mean, I've never met an organizational leader who didn't want, talented, growing employees who are hungry to learn, working for them. Now, if you don't know where your people want to grow or need to grow as a leader, well, you've already lost most of the battle, right? You've got to, you won't be able to build an environment, for growth because you're not, paying attention to the information required. So, excuse me. So, it could just be a simple question. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? What are your aspirations? What are your big goals? And some folks are going to say, I just really love being in the classroom. That's great. It doesn't mean that we can't develop other talents that work within the 4 walls, but also outside of the 4 walls. Because every effective teacher needs to be a great collaborator and communicator and have strong self-efficacy and confidence in themselves and what they're doing. There's so many things we can do to grow our people personally and professionally. So if you aim to retain and develop talent, you yourself as the leader need to be on a personal growth plan. Yes, you, the person with all the degrees, the person with all the letters next to their name, the person with the title. You yourself need to grow more than anybody, because you can't take people where you've never been. You are the lid to the organization's success. Your success, right, will directly align to the organization's, success. Because nobody can nobody can out achieve their own self-limiting beliefs, and nobody can overachieve their own, capacity for growth. So you have to be on a growth plan, right? Now, there's some big, barriers to this. Time. I don't have the time to grow. I'm so busy. Money. It's too expensive. If you think the bill for training is expensive, wait till you get the bill for incompetence, right? It's a big one. It's a big one. Or maybe like you've fallen into the positional trap. Oh, I already have the, position as the principal or the superintendent. I don't need to grow anymore, right? All these are, barriers and assumptions of why we don't need to grow. And they're all wrong. They're all wrong. Now, it's difficult to take the professional development of your people seriously if you're not serious in the professional development. I mean, as a professional, develop a certified trainer, there's nothing more off-putting than leading a staff through a half-day, full-day workshop, or even an hour workshop, and there's no principal. The principal left. I said, all right, see you in 3 hours. I got stuff to do. Right? Like the people, the 40, 50 people in the room don't have a lot of stuff to do. Right? Or they're in the room, but they're on their laptop the whole time. But they tell everybody else, phones away, everybody. Let's be present. Right? No good. No good. So it's difficult to take the professional development, the growth environment seriously if you yourself do not have a burning desire to grow and model growth. Okay. You've got to be the example. So this is you, sharing what you're reading, sharing what you're learning, sharing what is, raising your awareness all the time. Sharing where you fell short and how you overcame, whether it was through a mentor or a coach or a book or, something you read. All right. Now, this is not a should on you opportunity, right? We don't need to should on people here. Like, oh, you should read this, you should read that, right? That's where I fell short. I was just throwing out articles and stuff to all sorts of people. And then I was mad that they didn't read them, right? Don't should on people. And most importantly, don't just be a consumer of content. You don't need to be a library, right? You need to be an applicator, right? You need to apply what you're learning to get better results. I mean, people are going to respect that because, hey, where did you learn how to do that? How did you learn how to do that? People will follow you when they know, right, that you're a producer, right? That you're growing, that you're learning, and that you've advanced through organizations. Many people are attracted to that. In fact, half of your staff is attracted to that. More on that later. Now, you can never be too accomplished in order to grow. Can't. So, all right. So let's talk about this. Let's, make sure we've got the pieces in place. So first, you've got to have the right plan. Okay, the right plan for you. So, right. So I'm going to be talking about you personally and also your organization here. So the first part of, growing professionally is identifying the right plan. So this is knowing how you learn best. This is being very clear about when you're going to learn. Right. So for me, you won't find me on any walk without earbuds in because I'm either listening to a podcast. If I have long, drives, like I'm, listening, to content, or I'm re-listening, to older content that I've already taken notes, or I'm maybe listening to myself, which always isn't as fun, but it's important, right? Other podcasts. So I have to have a plan. So I love to read. Every day I read, every day I write, every day I create, every day I learn. Part of my professional development plan is asking questions, right? So a lot of observation, a lot of learning. I've got mentors, I've got coaches. I'm constantly in a mindset of, growth. So you, right, as an organizational leader, team leader, you have to make sure that you are creating an environment for growth, creating an environment for growth. So because nothing grows in toxic soil, right? So you've got to make sure that as an organizational leader, that you are feeding your hungry people. And you're going to say, oh my gosh, no one has time. No one has time to grow right now. Everybody's burned out, COVID. No, people are hungry in your organization. People want to grow. Not all of them, not all of them, but a very strong handful do. And if you don't take the time to grow the people that are hungry because you're more worried about the unhungry people, you're going to lose them. Somebody's going to feed them. They're going to go find an organization that's going to grow them. That's what they want to do, right? So how do you create an environment for growth? Okay, so we've already talked about creating the right plan. So knowing how your people learn best, knowing how you learn best, and making sure that you're meeting all those pieces, right? I just gave you my 4 or 5 ways, but how do we do it? So, personally, right? I talked about mentors. I visit great schools. I go to 3 to 5 conferences a year. I pick pretty much a book a month, sometimes more. So I'm reading them twice. I read them once to like underline and understand, and then I go back because I let the book read me, right? I just read what I underline. I really, really, want to go deep in those areas. Constantly listen to, podcasts, and most importantly, at the end of everything, I, write down my action, ACT. What am I going to apply? What am I going to change? Right? What am I going to apply in my life? What am I going to change in my life? And what am I going to teach someone else? Now, if what I really failed at here as an organizational leader, my first, job as a principal, I didn't know how to create an environment for growth. I was reading about, PLCs and things like that, but I didn't really understand, right, that these are the keys. So you could easily replicate your plan, right? So for me, I introduce my team to my mentors, right? Or I encourage them to find mentors, or I invite experts who could possibly be their mentor, right? So you're introducing them to people who are ahead of them. Okay. 2, you're going to, if you're going to go visit high performing schools like I do and we do, bring your team with you. Like we love it when, we have our regional principal consortium. We say, bring your best teachers, bring your team. Because leadership, right? It's caught. It's not always taught. It's hard to go see a high performing school and then bring it back and be like, oh my gosh, you should have seen this. They're like, oh, okay. But if you bring them with you, they can catch the fever too, right? So bring them with you, right? Expose them to great environments. Expose them to great opportunities. You go to conferences, bring them with you, right? Or send them to conferences and have some, understanding about, when they come back. I want you to, take us through your top 3 takeaways, or what are some, 2 or 3 things we can implement. One of the most powerful conferences I ever went to was the National Middle School Conference. It's now the AMLE, Adolescents for Middle Level Education. It was in Baltimore at the time, and I was a middle school principal, but I never was, middle school trained. I didn't really understand adolescence, and oh my gosh, it totally opened my eyes. And all I could think about is, man, I wish my team was here with me, because it would have been that much more impactful. And I know it's expensive. Don't think of the cost. Think of the investment. You're investing in people. Your people are the only appreciable asset in your entire organization. Your building's crumbling. Your books are crumbling, your computer's already out of date, your buses are a mess, but your people, you can appreciate, right? They appreciate and value. You could start your own internal book studies. You could give CEUs to your staff for not only participating in book studies, but organizing and leading book studies. You could do monthly lunch and learns where you either, Zoom in an expert, or you Zoom in another principal from another school, or maybe somebody in your own organization leads it, or you invite, someone in to maybe it's not about, your school. Maybe it's about, personal finance. I mean, like almost 90% of people live paycheck to paycheck. If you could teach your people how to better manage their finances, get out of debt, pay off those massive student loans. That'd be huge. I think there's still student loans. I don't even know. I paid mine off and I'm so glad. Whew, a big weight was lifted, over $140,000. Crazy. Or maybe it's, physical health. Maybe you bring in like a personal trainer a couple times a month. Maybe it's a nutritionist. Maybe it's someone who can help with mental health. Maybe it's someone who could help, people do yoga or, meditate, right? There's so many things you could do. Investment, not cost, investment. There's nothing worse than seeing a professional development line in a charter school's budget that's that's less than the water and sewer and trash. It makes me think about, we respect the water, sewer, and trash more than we respect the value of our people. Right? And just make sure that there's always application. There's always time to practice the professional development. There's always some sort of discussion. There's action steps, right? What will you apply? What will you change? What will you teach? All these schools and organizations that spend tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars on professional development to help people be better teachers don't understand that to be a better teacher, I have to be a better person first. I have to have a growth capacity. You've got to help, people grow personally, that make growth as a part of their life. Then and only then will the professional development from, the Singapore math experts or the, Eureka Math or the direct instruction people or STEM, whatever, that will stick, right? You'll make it stick when the people are ready to absorb it. And when you're a part of it. So there's just a couple ways, right? But I didn't know how to do that when I was a principal. But now, our team, we go through, a 21 Laws of Leadership we've been reading for the last, 20 weeks. Mentor time. I've got, we, travel to other schools. I've got a lot of, professional development. We're constantly growing, and that they have their own, personal pieces too. Maybe you could create a fail day, right? Excuse me. Gosh, my apologies. Right? What did you fail at this week? Right? Maybe they have to come to the meeting with one thing they failed at, right? So now you're promoting taking risk and chances. You're making it safe to try something outside the box, to get outside of your comfort zone. Maybe you have a weekly brainstorming session on any problem. It's called the yes and meeting, right? You're just trying to get the best idea, and you invite your idea oriented people. If you've taken a DISC personality profile with this, who are the eyes? The eyes bring great ideas. Now, you don't want too many people or no people that are always the how or the why. They're not invited to that meeting. No offense. We love you. We need you, but you're going to help us put some steps under there. We can't have you, dismissing every idea, because we want big ideas when we're trying to solve problems. So you got to think big here, but start small. So in John Maxwell's 15 Laws of Growth, he talks about the law of environment. So I'm going to put access to a little graphic in here for you, but I want you to mark true or false, right? Are you in an environment of growth, right? So true or false, others are ahead of you in your group. You're continually challenged. Your focus is forward. The atmosphere is affirming. You're consistently working out of your comfort zone. You wake up excited to go to work. Right? Failure is not the enemy. People desire change. Other people in the organization are growing. Right? So true or false to those? True or false? Now, if you've got more than half of those that are false, you got to change your environment. You're not in the right environment. You got to assess where you are. And if more than half were false for you, you got to make some changes, because if you change your environment but not yourself, your growth is going to be very slow. If you change yourself but not your environment, again, it's going to be limited, a little bit faster, but limited. To truly transform, you need to work on changing and growing yourself and changing your environment. Now, nothing grows in toxic soil. We've talked about, right? So, you might need to cultivate some of this, right now. So we've talked about the right plan, right? What's the right plan for you? How do I learn best? How do I make sure that my professional development, grows me, and I have a process for it? We've talked about the right environment. Now we got to talk about the right people. The right people. Now, who you learn from is just as important, if not more important, than what you learn. You see, you can't take people where you've never been. And one of the biggest mistakes I made early in my professional career was I would read a book, or I'd watch an article, I'd watch a video, and whatever. And then I would like immediately go to the staff meeting and try to teach it as like I did it. It was inauthentic, and I did a terrible job. Which I should have found is, hey, who are the types of people doing this already in their classroom? I want to bring them in. Again, don't worry about the cost. It's an investment. Don't think about cost. Investment, right? Invest in yourself, invest in your people. So you cannot give what you don't have, right? So bring in experts, find experts. And now, there's one great thing that COVID did, teachers, we can all pretty much learn in any environment. So if it's virtual, maybe it's a virtual, session. And maybe the cost isn't as high, but it's an investment. So don't be cheap. Don't be cheap with your people, right? Personally, you also need to create an inner circle. We have our Empowered Executive Inner Circle. It's a group of charter school principals that meet each week in a virtual session, and they have an opportunity to bring their challenges and to help think into other people's challenges and help strategize. I mean, they're constantly up leveling each other through better thinking, right? So who's in your inner circle? Do you have people in your inner circle that are better than you? Right, that you can learn from and that you're growing from in all aspects of your life, personally and professionally. And then you need to create an outer circle. This is also important. Like, these are individuals that you may not ever actually meet in person, but who's there, right? I mean, I'm really fortunate. I get to learn from some amazing, amazing leaders. John Maxwell and Jeff Henderson and Pet Lencioni just this past week, and the Maxwell faculty, and I got tens of thousands of other leaders in this group, in this community that are like-minded, and they just want everybody to be successful. I mean, I just spent 4 days with 3,000 people who are ready to change the world. They're so excited about growth. They came running in that room. There's music, and the energy was such at a high level. How can you create your professional development environment to be that where people are excited to come to a PD time? They're excited to grow, and that's what we need to create. And outside experts can make that happen. They can help you make that happen. But you also have very, very energetic individuals in your organization that can, hey, it's their job to like keep the energy high for every staff meeting, because that's what energy is really, really important. So we got right plan, right environment, right people. Now, are you using your IDP or your PDP, right? Your as a measuring tool for growth? Like, it should be something very, very clear to say, this is what I aim to achieve by X time. This is how I'm going to achieve it. And this happens through formal and informal reviews. And it's my growth plan. I should be looking at it all the time, not just, hey, let's see what you put in your growth plan here, 12 months later. Oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. It should be part of your daily 5. I mean, one of the 5 most important things you can do every single day as a leader, no matter what level you are, is grow yourself. Grow yourself so you can be better for those that you serve. Okay, so your PDP, it's a tool for growth. And you need to make sure that you're creating your calendar throughout the year, master calendar, and your daily count, daily calendars for a growth time, think time, strategy time, reflection time. And it's important as a leader that you show people how far they've come. You show them how far they've come, because when you're in the frame, right? When you're standing in the frame, it's hard to see the picture sometimes, right? So you as a leader have to help them. Say, I remember last year I was coaching some brand new teachers, and And they were really, it was, April, and they were really, really, gosh, I just don't feel like I've made any impact. I was like, well, describe to me what class looked like in September. Like, oh, little Johnny couldn't get him to sit down and this. I said, well, I don't know. I mean, do you have those problems today? No, I go, okay, that's growth. It's growth. See, we rarely think of ourselves as, successful. So it takes that feedback. It takes that constant approach and reminding people here to there, right? So, really think about, what do you have in place right now in your environment, right? So if you're creating an IDP, if you don't have one, for your people, you can either Google one, or just, it could be this easy, right? It's just, what do we aim to achieve, right? What will I do, to get there? What are my action steps in terms of my plan, my environment, and who, will I learn from? And then as an organization, you're looking at, okay, what do we already have in place? Do we have our professional development days in place? Is there time? Like, is everything already scheduled? Because, I want to schedule my one-on-ones with my, with my team, like immediately, like, 9, 10, 12 weeks out. Because I don't want it to be hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Let's go over your PDP, right? You want to make sure that there's quarterly, measurable times where we're intentionally looking at your PDP and your growth, right? So then part of your PDP should also be some sort of vision casting statement. Like, you can help them identify, what will success look like when I've achieved this goal, right? What will my students experience, right? Or what will our team achieve when I'm able, to do this, right? So I've got my vision casting, I've got my objectives of what I'm going to achieve. I've got how I'm going to do this. I'm going to visit 2 schools. I'm going to read these 3 books. I'm going to look at 4 other teachers. I mean, whatever it may be. And then you're going to plan that out. Okay. And you want to make sure, as an organizational leader, that your supervision ratio isn't too high. This is one of the indicators, or one of the benchmarks in indicator 4 that I was talking about, of the 10 indicators of high performing charter schools. Indicator number 4 about employee development: 15-to-1 ratio. 12 to 1, 15 to 1. There's a lot of you out there that are overseeing 30, 40, 50 people. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen well. Let me just tell you, right? So you've got to grow leaders to oversee some of the other people. And as a leader, you should be focusing 80% of your time on your top 20% capacity people. Okay. So if you don't have an IDP, make one up. Vision, right? Objective, the how, right? And then how often they'll be measured, right? And what success will look like. If you have it, use it effectively. Make sure you are scheduling at least minimum, quarterly reviews with them already on the calendar. And so you just want to make growth, it's a norm. Growing should be a norm. It should be part of the employee contract. It should be part of, like, my expectations as an employee should be to grow. So maybe we have hard conversations here, right? We read books here. We go to conferences here. We have an intentional plan to grow. And again, build your schedule to develop your future leaders. Identify where the big conferences are. And maybe you try to work your teacher work days into those bigger conferences. Maybe every year you bring different people to the to that same conference. We've got our quarterly checklist, our principals quarterly checklist. I'll put the link so you can download it here in the show notes. But you can download that and look 90 days in advance. And what I used to do is I used to give my top 2 leaders in my team, when I was a principal, they had 2 extra planning periods a week. So during those planning periods, they would, tackle some of those administrative jobs, right? So this is where you can take them out of the classroom, or maybe get a sub for them for the day. And you take them on walkthroughs, you take them on observations, right? You start to model the work, so then they can do it at times, right? So now they're doing observations and feedback, and they're growing parts of the organization. You want to make feedback a regular thing. I'm not going to take a lot of time on feedback, right? But it has to happen. It should happen as often as possible. And a 4-to-1 ratio, right? 4-to-1, 4 positive to 1 redirection should be your feedback. But you can search into that. I'll put a link. There's another one we did here on feedback. You can take a look. So make it a regular thing. And people will invest back in your organization when they see you investing in them. So they want to know that I have a future here. They want to know that there's an opportunity to grow here personally, professionally, and maybe even career-wise. And so last, I will say that experience is not enough. And experience does not make someone a better professional. Evaluative experience makes someone a better professional. You may have someone who's got 20 years experience, but if they haven't grown and they haven't changed, really they've just done the same thing for 20 different, one thing for 20 years versus I want someone who's got 20 years of evaluative experience, right? 20 years of layered learning, because consistency compounds over time. So if you want to, so this is, if you want to increase the intention rates, and if you want to increase the overall success of your organization, you have to be intentional about growth. There was a recent poll done. The top two things that employees wanted in returning back to their workforce after COVID. One was a place to grow and have a accelerated career path. And number 2 was compensation. Right? It's both about investment. Are you investing in your people? And here's just one thing, that I realized is that the more that I've learned, right, the more that I know, the more that I've learned, the more that I realize I don't know anything. So that's why you can never, ever, ever get to a point as an organizational leader where you are not growing. So hopefully this was helpful. A couple of resources I'll put here in the show notes. One, if you don't have a copy of our 10 indicators for high performing charter schools in your Kindle, I've got a free copy for you. There's a link there. And then we've got, there's some resources all about indicator 4 about how to grow yourself and how to grow your people, right there in chapter 4. And I'll add in the link on the feedback and anything else I think, and the quarterly checklist for principals. So thank you so much. If this episode added value to you, please like, share, and make sure you subscribe. And if you didn't like it, tell us why. It's okay, right? And whatever you want to learn, drop it in the comments, and I'll make sure that our next episode is all about that. Keep making a difference, everybody. It works if you work it.